Hello, so today we're going to be going over a Tristana reroll game. This is going to be a VOD review, so I'm going to talk through my thought process as well as what I'm doing every single round, as well as point out any mistakes I made so that you guys hopefully don't make the same mistakes. If you like my content, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're here from one of the guides that I've done in the past, I will be doing more guides. I've just been very busy these last couple of days. I'm actually going to be opening up my art store tomorrow. It's also going to have some merch because I thought it would be fun to have some. So that's going to be opening tomorrow, hopefully, if not the day after. It's just all contingent on me finishing the art piece that I'm working on. So you'll see that and I'll talk about it. That was supposed to be my 5,000 subscriber goal, but it has been a little bit hectic the last January for me. So that's going to be coming. And then as soon as I get that out, I'll have a little bit more spare time to work on some guides that I wanted to get through. I still have a little bit of a short list. The next guide is going to be something about fast nining and where's a good spot to fast nine. So if you're looking forward to that, also make sure to like and subscribe. But anyways, this game I'm going to be talking about Tristana. So Tristana is a quite strong of a unit. She scales really well into late game because she has a built-in scaling effect to her. So a lot of times if you reach like a quote-unquote critical mass, that's what I like to call it, but basically like this concept of like, you know, you do enough damage where you're actually like one-shotting units. At that point, it doesn't matter what the enemy board is, you're going to win the game because the Tristana is going to be able to like 1v9, or basically as long as she's casting her ult, she's winning you rounds. So I start off with an early Tristana. I'm putting Tristana in the front line here because I'm trying to get some extra stacks on her. If she can cast and kill these minions instead of putting her in the back line, she's not at risk of dying. I think the Rel just walked over and stole the Tristana anyways, which was really funny. But a lot of times in these early rounds, you can front row your Tristana because if you get hit, you generate more mana. So looking at my options, Clockwork Accelerator is okay if you have a really strong front line. Vander Hero, I don't really have a spot for it. Domination and Spirit Link. Spirit Link's okay in some spots, and Domination is okay in some spots, but I don't want to play towards either of those lines without an opener for them. So I just take gold for dummies to try and generate as much econ as possible and keep my options open. So look at my items, it looks like I kind of have like AD items, but they could be very flexible. I'm not sure if I'm going to be playing Tristana or if I'm even going to play AD. So I might just chill a little bit. I make Glass Whisper, so I'm just committing AD here. Never mind. You could decide to greed a little bit if you're not in like the strongest of spots. Here I could play around the Maddie and I get Enforcer in, or I could play the Tristana and try and get some Tristana stacks. So I'm basically committing towards AD. Usually if you're committing towards AD, it means that you're trying to play, if you're playing Flexible, you're playing Corki. If you're playing Reroll, you're playing Tristana or Zeri. And if you're playing in a specific line, sometimes it's Twitch, but then you usually want to keep your bow for a Gwinsu. So now let's go over the actual comp a little bit. So when I say Tristana reroll, there's many different styles of Tristana reroll. The main one is usually confused with like Urgot reroll, or not confused with, but a lot of times people play a variation that is around Urgot reroll with Experiment. So what it normally looks like is something like this, then you and I need Corki and Gangplank and Ezreal, something like this, right? So this is a different variation of it. This one's more centered around Urgot reroll. So you're playing Vertical Artillerist and you're trying to play deep into the line to help out this Urgot. You get in Pit Fighter to give the Urgot a little bit of extra sustain, and then you get in 3 Experiment to get the Experiment bonus on Urgot. A lot of times with Urgot, you'll be putting like general frontline AD melee items, so something like Sterix, Titans, and Bloodthirster. And a lot of times the Experiment Hex is somewhere in the front row, so you put that on your Urgot, and then you use the Experiment bonus of Zyra, which gives the Urgot true damage, to let him pop off and do a bunch of damage. A lot of times your secondary carry is Tristana, but because you're prioritizing items on Urgot, a lot of times Tristana just has the leftover stuff. So you usually roll for Tristana 3 and Urgot 3, and this is what it looks like. Now this is not the variation that I'm going to go for. So if you're trying to play around Tristana primary, that's like an Urgot primary where Urgot's doing most of your damage, and then eventually Tristana catches up because she gets the ramping effects of her killing with her ult, or gives her the extra attack damage. So if you're playing around Tristana, there's many different builds you can play, but what I like to do is usually I pick a strong front line and I put a Gwinsu on Tristana. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to get this Tristana to ramp up to the point where she's ulting very fast. And then when she ults very fast, she basically absolutely decimates the opponents. When you're playing this, you're a lot more flexible. And it's a lot more stable in your early game because you're not relying on strictly the Urgot. It is a lower cap version. I will explain that. It is a lower cap version. What I mean by that is that if you're playing around Urgot with Experiment, the Urgot is your main damage deal. And Urgot is a much higher quality unit and it's very strong right now in the current patches. However, Tristana does get to a point where she will out DPS most units in the game so long as you can sustain yourself or sustain your board enough to give that Tristana the ability to stack up those AD stacks for killing units with her ult. In order to set myself up in my mid game, a lot of times what I will do is I'll either play around a bruiser opener or a sentinel opener, and then you just play around whichever ones are less contested in order to give you this strong front line that is hard to deal with, right? Whenever you play deep into a vertical trait, you're basically supposed to be more tanky than some of the opponents, which gives you a good opportunity to cap out your board really high later in the game, as well as to let a unit like Tristana, if you're giving her a Gwynsu, to stack up in order to get multiple attacks off. Tristana's attack speed is really middling, so sometimes if you don't have a Gwynsu, you don't have base attack speed, is not that good. But typically, because you want her to kill with her ult, I like to build her in a full crit build. So a lot of times you'll see something like Gwynsu, i.e. Last Whisper. There's other variations of this that work really well. Gwynsu late game is kind of useless because a lot of times like you don't have time to ramp up the Gwynsu anyways. So a lot of times putting damage amp on Tristana is really good. So something like a Giant Slayer works really well. You can also go for a full damage amp or like base attack speed build. You're pretty flexible, so you just want to ramp. You just want to stack because she gets a lot of AD on her own. You want to stack either a bunch of damage amp or a bunch of crit chance in order to do a lot of damage. So something like, you know, guard breaker as well could work out well. You just want to take that AD and multiply it by some effect in order to make her do as much damage as possible. But let's just go by the first build that I was saying. There's many different builds, like I said, and a lot of times you basically take the opposite of what you hit with the anomaly. So for example, if I'm going full crit, I'll try and find a damage amp anomaly, so then I have a bunch of AD from her kit, crit from her items, and damage amp from the anomaly, and just have a nice well-rounded package. When you're building like this type of build though, a lot of times you'll also see a sentinel variation of this. Sentinels are often a lot more reliable to play around. They're pretty tanky, and the armor that you give to everybody helps out your whole board. And then later, you can cap out two different ways. If you're just on a scaled a lot, you don't really need to play into 4 artillerists, and you can actually play 6 sentinel when you level to 8. Or you can also play around 4 artillerists, which is the more common variation, just to make sure that the Tristana is doing maximum amounts of damage. But both of these can cap very high on level 8, and a lot of it just comes down to your Tristana gaining as many stacks as possible in your early game until you transition into your late game. There's other variations that if you high roll really hard, that you can play emissaries. This is something of the past because it's very hard to play around these units nowadays, just in general. They're not only are they contested, but it's also just like a very expensive board that you really need to high roll in order to stabilize. But because Tristana is an emissary unit, if you play 4 emissary, you can still keep that emissary bonus. And this used to be a version of the comp, but it's very high roll. I would never really angle myself or suggest doing this unless you hit like multiple copies of the emissary units, like you have a Garen 2 or an Mbessa 2 that you can play around. But the idea holds, right? Whenever you have a backline unit that you're trying to ramp up, like with a Gwynsu as a AD unit, or if you have an Archangels on an AP unit, a lot of times it just helps you to be really stable, to have a penetrable front line. So in this case, if I hit a bunch of Urgots, I'll play towards Urgot reroll. If I hit a bunch of Tristanas, I'll play towards Tristana reroll. As you can see on my bench here, I'm still trying to play flexibly. I have 2 Zeris, I have 2 Tristanas. I'm still trying to keep my options open. Zeri works really well with Sentinels as well. It's Victor's Vision, so rerolling and hitting units on stage 4 might be important, right? If you spend more time rerolling, you'll have a greater chance of finding a 6 cost. So I typically, when I see Victor's Vision, I think to myself, maybe I want to play a reroll line instead of greeting to play level 8, level 9, because then other people hit the 6 costs and I kind of get destroyed anyways. But as you can see, I just made a generic AD items. I'm not committed to Tristana just yet. We'll see what my items get dropped, and then based on my items, I'll decide whether I'm committing Tristana, committing Zeri, or if I'm going to be trying to play towards some sort of 4 cost. I can easily take these items and play towards Scrap, if Scrap is relatively uncontested. I can also even play towards Twitch if I get an opportunity to play Twitch. Twitch is a lot weaker, so I wouldn't necessarily go towards Twitch unless I have an emblem, like let's say I hit Experiment emblem or I hit a Bruiser emblem, then I'm a little bit more inclined to play around Twitch. So we look here, I get dropped Sword, I get dropped Rod, and I get dropped another Glove. So in terms of builds that I want to do, I kind of like Gwynsu, i.e. Last Whisper. So I look around here, and this is really important. So I see one guy playing Watcher reroll. This guy has Duplicator, so I don't know if he's trying to play reroll. And this person looks like, well, they're Clear Mind, so they're probably Clear Mind into Scrap, Slamming. But basically, there's at least one other person that's rerolling. Whenever you decide to go towards a reroll comp, you always want to make sure there's at least one other reroller with you. It's not critical, it's not exclusively like you need this to happen, but I see that somebody's playing Vladimir hero, which means they're probably going to be playing around Watchers and buying a lot of Watchers. And Vladimir himself is a 2 cost. So if there's at least one other reroller in the lobby, I feel comfortable going towards a reroll line that is uncontested because we're going to help each other hit. If I'm holding a bunch of Tristanas, that guy's going to find a bunch of Vladimirs. And if he buys a bunch of Vladimirs, it's going to make it easier for me to hit Tristana. And the same thing applies to every single other copy of my 2-cost units. So as you can see here, because I have triple Tristana items, I didn't really get dropped like the best in terms of Urgot items. I could have maybe played towards Urgot here, but in terms of my full items, I have 3 items on Tristana, so I want to play the variation that supports Tristana the most. And that's not going to be the Urgot reroll line where I'm playing Experiment with Urgot. Even though it's a higher cap version, I don't have Urgot items. I have Tristana items. So I made Tristana items. I'm going to play around this Tristana, basically. So here, I probably want combat. I already have an Econ Augment, which is great. Just stacking more combat would be pretty good. Piercing Lotus is okay here. I might end up taking it. I'm not sure which one I end up taking. Ooh, Thornplate. I'll probably take Thornplated, actually. So, Thornplate isn't the greatest thing all the time. Here I hit extra Tristana, so I commit towards Tristana. I still had my Zeris there because I might have played around Zeri. But here I'm just looking to stabilize my front line a little bit with some Sentinels. And I'm also looking to get an Artillerist. So I'm just going to roll here until I find at least one copy of Urgot or some other Artillerist. Boom. I have Artillerist. I could roll a little bit deeper to try and find like an upgraded to the front line. But based on the augments, the Thornplated armor, where you get the free Bramble, is a very strong augment in the early and mid game. It just does a lot of damage and gives you a lot of value. There are already, when I scouted before, going to be a lot of AD players in the lobby, so it's not even like I'm taking it and everybody's playing AP. AD is a lot more common in general, so the augment is also seeing a lot more play for that reason. But in my lobby in particular, there's a lot of AD players, so I'm pretty happy with it anyways. What I was saying before is that because I have full crit here, I could also take the Lotus to give me extra crit chance, but because I already have a Last Whisper, I don't really want to take it if there's another option. And there was another option there, so I just took it anyways. Here, this is a classic level and roll into lose round, the Fenrir Classic. This was a positioning diff. My Tristana got targeted first by the Ezreal after my front line died. If I position opposite side, I would have beat this guy. So, you know, minus 10 HP, that's my bad. I'm high rolling these Tristanas a lot, which is pretty nice. I switch out Ezreal. I think Urgot's a little bit better just because Ezreal, like my backline is fine. I would rather just have an extra frontline unit. The Vladimir player looks like he is rerolling Watchers, so he's going for Vladimir and Vander, which is good for me because it's going to make it easier for me to hit my units. Ideally, I want to hit Tristana 3, Urgot 3, and then one other frontline, either Rel or Leona. Either is fine because they're all 2 costs. So once I hit, more importantly, it's Tristana and Rel or Tristana and Leona. Once I hit like a good amount of frontline and backline, then I can push levels to get either 6 Sentinel in or to put in 4 Artillerists. That's the game plan, right? So I gave you the whole game plan. We have a lot of Tristanas. The spot's really good for Tristana. So I committed these items. I rolled a little bit. In my roll down, I found a bunch of Tristanas. I am full committed. And because I have triple item on Tristana, she's also going to stack really well in these early game fights. Looking at this, right, the Vladimir player looks like he's trying to play like Sorks with Vlad. So he took Starry Night, and I think he's trying to push levels and play like either Emissary Sorks or Sorks in general. So I don't know what's going on with his board. But I'm just hoping with Starry Night he hits as many of those 2 costs as possible to help me out. It's alright, either way. I also have a good balance of frontline and backline items because I did get the thorn plated, like my middle augment was basically good for tempo, right? It makes me a little bit stronger, and it also gives me a frontline item. Here there's Tristana with a belt. My items are good here, right? I don't have anti-heal just yet, but I have Last Whisper for Sundering. I could worry about anti-heal a little bit later. Warmogs is good on Sentinels, right? If you have units that get a bunch of armor and MR, which I have right now, and I have an augment that also gives armor and MR, right? Thornplate isn't the best on Sentinels. That's what I was saying. Like, there's an argument that I could have taken a different gold augment for the middle one. But it's fine. Here I can just make Warmogs, HP, armor. Maybe I get a Declaw on this guy and he becomes a Giga Loris. Who knows? I can even go for Loris 3 eventually. And plus, on Carousel, it's a Tristana to Tristana. That's 1 closer. I'm basically 2 off of Tristana 3. If I hit Tristana 3 really early, it's going to be a little bit awkward for me to decide exactly when to level and all of that. Because if I just hit this Tristana instantly, then maybe I can play around Emissaries, right? Because I'm kind of high rolling these Tristanas. As you can see, I found a Garen in my shop, so I'm just going to hold on to Garen. because that's one of the emissary units. There is a chance, remember what I was saying before, that if you high roll Tristana's hard enough, you can just play towards a higher cap version, which is like emissaries, where you play a bunch of 4 costs upgraded, and then you can push levels and play level 9, find a legendary unit. Those are all higher cap versions of these. But for right now, I'm pretty happy with this, right? Whenever I play a reroll line, I'm happy just going top 4, right? If I go 3rd, 2nd, even 1st, it's all bonus money for me. When I commit to one of these lines that's not the strongest line, a lot of times it's because I'm looking at my spot, I'm looking at my items, I'm looking at my units that I have to play around, right? I started the game off with a bunch of Sentinels, I started the game off with a bunch of Tristanas. I'm just going to play Tristana with Sentinels. There's no need for me to make like a full pivot, try and play around Urgot reroll because it's the higher cap version, or even try and play around emissaries unless I high roll into the emissaries, right? If I find a Garen 2, like I'll hold on to Garens until he griefs my econ. If I find an Mbessa, right, that's when I'll probably play towards one of those lines. That's what I mean by high roll. Like I already high rolled one Garen. If I high roll an Mbessa, then I'm a little bit more inclined to play around that. But other than that, I'm probably just going to sit here. I have my training dummy in the back always because I'm trying to get as much gold generation off it as possible. And Tristana is just going to stack for most of this mid game. I'm just going to try my best to get as many stacks as possible so that she scales really well into late game. Hitting an early Tristana is also really strong because the earlier I hit this Tristana 3, the stronger she will become because she'll keep getting those kills. This Gangplank unit is just going to snipe me from the back line, so I'm going to lose this round, I think. I don't even get to... That would have killed for sure, but that's -1 stack. Another positioning diff, I think if my Tristana was on opposite side for this fight as well, I would have saved it. So you can just count -20 HP for being sloppy. With my execution for sure. I should be scouting a little bit better and trying to position the Tristana either in front of threats. This is going to be a really important part. I think late game I had a really good example of threat evaluation with the Tristana. So stay tuned if you're interested in that. I know the people that like the VOD reviews usually watch most of the VOD reviews, so hopefully it's helpful or beneficial in that way. But a lot of times with Tristana, what helps a lot is positioning her in such a way that you are bursting down or killing the main enemy unit that you want to. A lot of times, like with Tristana, because she does so much burst damage, if you can kill a unit off really early, it benefits you a lot. Here I found the Mbessa. I found the Mbessa on a one-off Tristana. Yeah, this is kind of a dodgy spot. I could technically just play towards emissaries here, but I don't know if I will. So right now, the biggest thing, this is definitely high roll, right? Because I found both Mbessa and Garen. Now, I could go straight to level 8, and then I can fit in 2 Sentinel, 2 Artillerist, 4 Emissary. I could also switch to 4 Emissary right now. Like, if I level to 7, I can play 2 Sentinel, 2 Artillerist, 4 Emissary. That might be stronger, actually. I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see. I might just sit now, because this is definitely my strongest board right now. I think even if I switch to 4 Emissary, my front line becomes very, very fragile without Garen 2. So we'll see how it plays out. But I might hold on to this Mbessa and this Garen for a little bit, and then decide in a couple turns whether or not I want to play them. Yeah, so I'm just going to sacrifice a little bit of econ here. I could sell the Loris and the Ezreal and make 50 here. I'm just trying to keep my options open, because I'm not sure if I'm going to reroll towards Loris or if I'm going to stay on level 6. This is what I mean. Sometimes it's really awkward. These are those awkward moments where I often don't know what to do. Okay, let's see. Wait, Tomb Raider. I am technically strong, but I don't want to sack Tomb Raider here. Calculated enhancements isn't the greatest because it gives attack damage and ability power, and I already have a bunch of attack damage. Blinding speed isn't that great because I don't need these items. Radiant relics is okay, maybe. Do I take Radiant relics or do I just take calculated enhancements? I see Piercing Lotus. I'm just gonna take Piercing Lotus here. I know I already have crit chance and I already have Sundering, but I'm just going to give myself more crit chance. If you look at the Tristana, I think my bubble is in the way. But my Tristana was at 80% crit chance, so this gives her a full 100% crit chance. It shouldn't really matter when your crit chance is that high, especially if you have a Guinsoo. But I just look at it, I'm like, okay, out of all of these, I want a combat augment. I think that's my strongest combat augment. As opposed to the Radiant item, I'd rather just have my whole team critting. Because eventually... I'm gonna play 4 Artillerists probably, right? And if you play 4 Artillerists, remember I was talking about, like, you know, you play Corki, right? If I have crit on Corki and crit on Ezreal, late game, that's actually gonna be pretty substantial, right? This Corki's gonna do a lot of work, and this Ezreal's gonna do a lot of work if I can cap out around having items with them. So Piercing Lotus, it's not completely wasted, because I can definitely use it on other units on my board. It's just like, you know, I just want a combat that gives me as much power as possible. Radiant item, I could get Radiant something on the Tristana and it might be fine. Another thing with Tristana, by the way, with this build, by the way, if you have piercing or if you have like other itemizations, a lot of times it's better to not move the last Whisper onto somebody else and to give her a Gunblade. Because she does so much burst damage, this Gunblade can actually heal your front line and sustain you a lot longer, which is really beneficial. So a lot of times Gunblade is like one of Tristana's best items, I think, if you look in the stats. But for right now, I don't have a Gunblade. I didn't really have Gunblade components, so I'm not really playing around that just yet. But that's just something to note, right? When I'm talking about different builds, right, I'm trying to keep it as beginner friendly as possible. I hate saying like, this is the best build, because I think like if somebody's like a new player, that's how you lose so much games and so much LP, by just like not thinking conceptually and just like hard forcing exactly what you see. So I'm trying to that's why I'm trying to frame it like, okay, this works really well because this works with this and this works with this. I'm trying my best to do it like that. But of course, like, it is really good to get a what's it called? To get a Gunblade on her. This guy took anger issues. I think Guinsoo is like the least important item on Crimson Pack Vlad. We were talking about it yesterday when I did the Vladimir guide. So I'm not really scared of the Vladimir player. But we'll see how things work out. As you can see right now, I feel like I'm pretty strong with this Tristana 3. And my Tristana does have a lot of stacks on her. So right now, I'm just kind of biding my time. I'm just kind of sitting here. I'm not really doing anything. This is very greedy of me, right? I could be using my gold for either rolling right now, or I can use my gold to push levels and strengthen my board a little bit. I could pivot into the emissary variation of this board, which I think is a lot higher cap. But I eventually I just sold my units because I ended up finding a lot of copies. Like, I found extra copies of Rel and extra copies of like Leona. So if you look at my bench now, I'm in a good spot to like hit like 3-star Rel, 3-star Leona. So what I decided here is that I'm just gonna roll until I hit a another 3-star 2 cost, and then I'll start pushing levels. So I decided to abandon the emissary cap version because I'd rather just have this Tristana have this stronger front line and scale up a little bit more. When you play the emissary version, it adds more threats to your board and it makes the Tristana do a little bit more damage, but it's not as much front line until you have a Garen 2. So with this setup, I decided to sell the emissary units and just do the reroll variation to give. Basically, I'm going all in on Tristana, right? Here I'm going all in on Tristana, and I'm saying, okay, Tristana will stack up during this entire stage. If I can hit a 3-star, what's it called? A 3-star 2 cost, then I should have enough front line to sustain her, and then we'll be fine. This is unfortunate. This guy hit TF3, so you know he's pretty far ahead. It is what it is. So now we're looking at Anomaly. Anomaly, we either want something that gives us really good front line to help sustain the Tristana. We don't really want flat AD, in my opinion, because we already are gaining so much AD with the Tristana. That's going to be fine. Crit chance might be good in some cases, but we already have 100% crit, so it's just going to convert that into critical strike damage, which we don't necessarily need. So ideally what we're looking for is damage amp or front line. And damage amp is probably going to be the greatest thing we can hit. And what do you know? Force of Friendship. 1% damage amp for each star level on your board. 3-star champions gain 8% grant 8% damage amp instead. Perfect. We even have Piercing Lotus, so if we add other threats to the board, so for example, let's say we add this Urgot. This Urgot already has abilities that can crit and increase crit chance, right? So we already have crit on our whole board. Now we get damage amp on our whole board. There's pretty much nothing better that I can hit except for other damage amp ones. This one works out really well because if you look at my board, I'm close to Leona 3 and I'm close to Rel 3. So I have a good opportunity to get multiple 3 costs on this board to give myself as much damage amp as possible. And you might look at this, you might say, okay, well, how much do I reroll? Why are you rerolling so much? Blah, 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 right? I could have pushed levels multiple times during this game, right? I had the Garen, I had the Ambessa. I kind of explained the Garen and the Ambessa in one perspective of, it's really high cap, it's hard to stabilize because you need Garen too, this gives you more front line, and it's a little bit more sustained. The Tristana is going to reach critical mass at one point, so as long as I can sustain myself and win these early game fights, I'd rather not greed too much to level, because I just stack up my Tristana way harder if I just keep killing units these couple fights. That's all stuff that's true and valid that I explained already. The other thing that's really important to understand is that in this encounter, it is Victor's encounter. As of right now, there is, although it's a small percent chance, there is still a percentage chance that I can find a 6 cost while rolling. I'm incentivized to keep rolling, because if I hit these 3 stars, I can just level for a Victor or a Warwick or a Mel, because I might hit a 6 cost because I'm just seeing so many more shops than everybody else. So there's multiple reasons to commit towards rerolling here. And now I also got an anomaly, which works out perfectly to this game plan, that gives me damage amp to augment my damage by hitting 3 stars. So ideally now, if I can hit everybody 3-star, I will. So I'm 1 off Leona. I'm greeding a little bit here because I hit Rel 3, so I don't think I'm going to lose any fights this stage anymore. The only fight I lost was that close one against the TF, but I didn't have Rel 3. So I'm okay with this. So I made double Warmogs. I have anti-heal. I have Sundering. I'm going to try and go for Leona 3 and Urgot 3, and then I'm going to push levels. Like I said, Artillerist, 4 Artillerist is really strong. It does add extra threats, but until I start, I'm not going to push levels to 8 to try and find a Corki to make a Corki 2. This Tristana can deal with most of the boards, so long as she reaches that critical mass, quote-unquote critical mass of like being able to one-shot some of the more tankier units. But as of right now, I feel pretty good. This guy already found a 6 cost, as you can see. A lot of the people that are spending their gold are getting into these situations where they find the 6 cost. Because it's Victor's vision, it is important to keep that into account always. Oh, do I lose this? I might lose this, actually. Oh, I think I lose this because of the Mel. The Mel just deleted me. Uh-oh. Well, that's a bad loss. So, at one point, we have to stop greeting, and we might have to just push levels to stabilize. Okay, we hit Leona 3. That's an Alawi that I can hold on to. I don't think I can show you because my camera is cutting it off. But I think my Tristana is at like 30% damage amp or something, right? It's 8%, 8%, 8%, 2%, 2%, 2%. So what's that? 6 plus 8 times 3, 24, 30. Right? So I have 30% damage amp on this Tristana. 6 plus 24, 30. Yeah. So I literally have 30% damage amp on this Tristana already. And it's only going to get more if we find Urgot 3. We get a little bit extra. And if we level, we can play extra units, which gives us a little bit more star level as well. So that's a couple Urgots. I'm going to roll a little bit here before I level, because I don't really have anything to level 4. Basically, I can keep rolling until I find a Corki. And what do you know? We find a Mel, and we find Urgot 3. So bang. That's another, what? Like, that's 8 times. That's 32 plus 2 plus 2. 36% damage amp. Like, hello? 36% damage amp, 100% crit chance, and Giga AD. GG. The game's over. Here, I think I just take Gunblade. I'm thinking about putting Gunblade on Tristana, but as of right now, I just like the full crit build because of all the damage amp that I have. So instead, I put Gunblade on Mel. There is an opportunity for me to switch that around late game if I feel like I need it. Because, like I said before, Gunblade on Tristana is going to be very strong. It's just that I don't really want to put the other items on anybody else. So I'd rather just have this Tristana just pump out damage, and Mel could be like a secondary carry that she'll probably do a good amount of damage as well. I should also put the red buff on the Mel here if I'm trying to like super optimize, but it's an Urgot 3, so it's going to live anyways, so it's fine. But if I still had Urgot 2, then red buff on Mel, she spreads it out way better than the Urgot. But it's okay because like that's like an optimization, but it's like in the moment, I can forgive myself for not doing that. You know what I mean? Like triple item on Urgot, it's still going to be strong. If anything, I should put the Gunblade on Urgot because triple item on Urgot's going to stack a little bit better. But anyways, we have a lot of HP on this Rel. We're making 40 gold here. I'm holding on to these extra Lorises because in my head, the way that I'm thinking about it is that if I could just reroll on 7 here, I can also hit a Loris 3 and get some more damage amp on my board, which is totally valid. But basically, we're going to try and level. We're going to level either for 4 Artillerist or we're going to level for 6 Sentinel. And it might even be matchup dependent. Some matchups, if I feel like I'm playing like a front to back comp and their front line is stronger than mine, I might want to play around, what's her name? I might want to play around Alawi and 6 Sentinel, right? If there's a comp where it just comes down to like who can DPS and I have to like burst through their tank, that they have a better front line, I need more DPS, then you can play 4 Artillerist. So a lot of times it's like an option select. You can decide which one you want to do, and there's no correct answer, right? Of course, the stats are going to favor one way or another, but you also have to take into account what the other people hit and what their boards are. But so far, pretty good. We haven't really had to do much in terms of like threat assessments. But I think at one point in this game, they'll probably be like especially late game, we'll have to pay attention. So I found my 6 cost, which is great. A lot of times, like, if you push levels too aggressively in Victor's vision, you don't hit a 6 cost and everybody else has a 6 cost, and then it just becomes like a gong show fiesta for you late game where you're just like losing to 6 costs all the time. This guy's a little bit scary because he did high roll a lot. He has Loris 3, so it's gonna be really hard for me to hit Loris 3. But I'm still holding these Lorises on bench. It wasn't to grief this guy, by the way. It was mostly for the sake of Loris 3 is a huge upgrade for me, and it's something that I'm always gonna be playing, so I'm totally down to like hold on to them just in case this guy dies, right? His anomaly, I think I remember this. He got Bully, so he had a similar build to me. He had crit chance and he got Bully, but specifically in the matchup here, you can see that I'm significantly stronger than him now. It's because I have a lot of damage amp. His damage amp doesn't work on my units because I have so many 3 stars. Bully is like, if they're a lower star level than you, you do more damage. But because he's a 3 star and I have 3 3-star frontline units, he just can't chew 3. He doesn't have, like, his anomaly is very weak compared to me. So that's really good matchup for me because I think the TF might have been able to beat me. He's like a reroll that is capped a little bit higher. But like I said, if we can just survive long enough, right? It's already 5-5. If we can survive to like, you know, 6-5 or something like that, like until next carousel, our Tristana will probably be strong enough to just one-shot everybody. It's going to be like not even close anymore, which is great. We're just playing a waiting game, right? We have good tempo, good sustain. We had a good Tristana spot. We high rolled the Tristanas as well, which was really nice. We spent a lot of time rolling at a low level. As you can see, I'm still level 6 here. Just recently level 7. I'm not level 8. I'm not level 9. Other people are capping higher. They're going to level 8, going to level 9. Right, look, this guy's level 8, full academy board, upgraded 4 cost units. It's totally fine, right? For his gameplay that he did that. But for me especially, right, these 3-star frontline units are going to be extremely tanky. They're hard to deal with, right? After the frontline units are dealt with, I still have this Tristana. Look at the ball. The ball is indicative. Like, it's a funny thing they did for the set to make it like nice to play around. The ball is like indicative of how much AD this Tristana has. So it's just going to grow bigger and bigger, which is going to be goofy and funny, but also entertaining. As you can see, I lost to this guy, right? This is what I mean. The board doesn't cap very high. A lot of times you have to play, if you're playing it this way, you have to play it from more of a tempo spot, the same way I did. The academy player, he just beat me, right? He is stronger than me, and he's not even the strongest in the lobby. He's going 8th. Like, he's 1 HP. He's going to die next turn if he fights anybody that's remotely strong, right? For me, it's like, yes, I lose to him now, but do I lose to him in 3 turns? No, probably not. Once I have infinite damage amp, right? I have, not infinite, but I have a lot of damage amp. I have 100% crit, and I'm stacking AD. Every time I stack AD, it multiplies. It multiplies by the damage amp, and it multiplies by the crit ability. So as long as I continue to stack AD here, I will win out eventually. Now, will I win out in time? Who knows? Will I go first this game? I don't remember exactly, but probably, right? But the idea is that at one point, I'm going to be all the units that live a crit or live a crit giant blast from this Tristana this round, they won't live it next round. And other units that live it the next round won't live it the round after that. So long as I keep stacking this Tristana, I have an amazing setup here to play for a first, which is why I'm playing a little bit greedy, right? I'm not rolling on level 8 for Corki. I'm not rolling on level 8 for another Sentinel. I'm not pivoting my board to play all these Sentinels and other stuff. I'm playing around the Mel, right? Mel gives me an extra life, so I also, no matter what point it looks like I would die, I also get 1 extra turn because of the Mel. I'm trying to stack up this Tristana, and then I'm going to try and actually just go to level 9 here. If I hit a Corki or if I hit 4 Artillerists, I can go to level 9, fit in 4 Artillerists with my current setup. I can also fit in 6 Sentinel with my current setup. But right now, I'm just trying to bide my time, get this Tristana to stack up as much as possible, and then I should be able to beat most of the boards here. I think the only player that is super scary, I think there's an Enforcer player. The Enforcer player with the Caitlyn could easily just snipe out this Tristana, so there's a good chance that I just like lose out that way. Here, I have triple item on the Urgot now. So I could just leave these 3 items on Urgot. So I just put a red buff on, Rabadon's on Mel, because Mel is doing a significant amount of damage here. Additionally, I can also put red buff on Mel, like I said before, but it's fine just to put triple item on Urgot. I'm okay with just Urgot having a bunch more attack speed. This is the Enforcer play I was talking about. Enforcers have a lot of frontline because of their health shield, and just do an insane amount of damage as long as they kill a unit. So if you go back to the beginning of this fight in particular, oh god. I think it's right now. If you go back to this fight, I think I positioned in such a poor way, because it basically, if they kill the, I want to position such a way that it's hard for this Enforcer player to get the first Enforcer proc. But I think they instantly get it off of one of my units here. Like, they instantly just kill this. Like, you see my Leona is getting hit by the Caitlyn instantly. So this Caitlyn 2 just instantly kills my Leona and gets the giant attack speed proc. Right? What I want to do is I want to position in such a way against the Enforcer player in the future if I fight him again. I want to put one of my stronger tanks in front of the main damage dealer, which in this case is the Caitlyn, to make sure that they don't get the Enforcer proc right away. Because the first Enforcer proc, everybody gets a bunch of attack speed, and then we're in shambles. We just lose out. Here I found Corki, so now I can level and I can play 4 Artillerist. I just lose Jace. Jace was just there because Crystal, Crystal is cool. I go instantly level 9 here, just because 4 Artillerist is a good bump in AD. I don't think I necessarily need it, but I can also play around 6 Sentinel. So here I'm going to try and move around my units. I'm putting Tristana on opposite side here because I'm fighting the TF player. I don't really care too much about gold anymore, so as you can see, I'm now frontlining my dummy, right? It doesn't matter to me if I don't get the 1 gold from the dummy this turn. I just want the TF to waste time on the dummy, make my Tristana have a little bit more time to stack up the Guinsoo. This guy's frontline, I don't think he can sustain the Tristana damage, so we actually have good matchup into him, and his anomaly is pretty useless against me. So we should win this. As you can see, it's not even close. But this is what I was saying, right? As I stack up this Tristana, eventually I'm gonna invalidate everybody on the team, or sorry, everybody in the lobby. So here, this is the part where, I think this is the part where it's a really strong teachable moment, right? If you look at this board, who is the threat? Who is the threat here? The threat is Rumble. If you cannot tell, this is an emissary board, right? Sure, emissary is strong, whatever, blah, 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 I don't care, right? The main damage dealer here is going to be either Corki, which I can't really reach, or Rumble. Rumble does an insane amount of damage, and that's a Rumble 2. If you don't believe me, you got to play more TFT. I don't know what to tell you. Rumble here is probably going to be the main damage dealer, if not Corki, but probably Rumble. So I don't want this, well, maybe the Rumble items aren't that great, so maybe it's Corki, but either way, I want to kill this Rumble as soon as possible. So if I'm assessing the threat here, I want to position in such a way that I am bursting down this stupid ass Rumble before the game even starts. So what am I going to do? I'm going to put this Tristana right in front of the Rumble. I want, like, it's a little bit more risky because my Tristana is more in danger's way, not tucked in the corner. But I'm going to put all my tanks in front of the Rumble, and I'm going to burst down this Rumble as soon as possible. Because the longer you let the Rumble live, he has shit where he fires bullets and missiles at the back line. I don't know what upgrades he has. Maybe I should have scouted the upgrades as well. It doesn't look like he has any upgrades right now. But either way, I'm getting rid of this. I'm getting rid of this Rumble first. Okay, we don't need to figure out if the Rumble is going to kill me or not. Done. Anbessa, gone. None of these. Now it just comes down to if Garen can out-tank me with the double, what's it called? The double Warmogs. But we should be fine here. Done. Right? As you can see, we're reaching that point of what I like to call critical mass. Right? We are absolutely one-shotting everybody. And that's what I was saying. If we make it to like around 6-5, this is my experience from playing Tristana. If you can make it to 6-5, pretty much no comp can really deal with you. Unless they have like some kind of giga comp, like, like 8 Enforcer, or like, a prismatic one if it's not 8 Enforcer. Like, they have to have some crazy shit on their board in order to like not die to this Tristana instantly. Here on Carousel, I probably should take in Redemption, by the way. I took Thorn Plated because I took up Bramble Staff Thorn Plated, but it doesn't really make sense here because one of the players is an AP player, so you don't get that much value off Bramble. So here we roll a little bit. Now I have 6 Sentinel, so if I want to, I could swap out into 6 Sentinel instead of playing the Artillerist. That is an option. So judging on the fight here, I already know like last time I fought this guy, I pretty much instantly deleted all of his units. So I don't really think he has a chance against me. I also have I have spare change here, right? I'm 19 HP. I can die. I can lose a round. I have Mel, which I had already. So Mel's gonna proc Brandish Mage, so I live with 1 HP anyways. So I'm approximately like 3 lives here. So I have a lot of time to like figure this out. But this should be a first, right? I should be able to convert it because like look at this Tristana damage. Ready? Bang. Ready? Bang. Ready? One more. Bang. Just it's just everybody's dead. It just comes down to the emissary player is a little bit scary because they can always hit more 5 costs. But I think the emissary player is gonna die. And it's just gonna come down between me and this this Twisted Fate player, which isn't really scary for me. So yeah, it's just a good matchup. The reason it's such a good matchup is because Anomaly is pretty useless against me, which is really unfortunate for him. Like if he had the same Anomaly as me, it might have been a little bit of a closer fight. But he has an Anomaly where he gets bonus, he gets 12% damage amp, but then he gets 36 if they're a lower star level. And the problem is I have 3 frontline units that are all 3 stars, which is just like great. That's pretty bad. Here I'm going to put in 6 Sentinel. This is for science, by the way. I don't think it's better right now, but I just wanted to see how it plays out, just so I know in the future against like these type of matchups how it is. Because in my head I'm like, I think I kill him anyways. Like look, there's Tristana, 2 artillerists, 4 artillerists. Is this guy living in 1 hit? No. I guess the Alawi lived that hit, so I would have been a little bit cleaner if I it would have been a little bit cleaner if I didn't. But as you can see, my Rel is still alive, right? Look, this TF, my Rel's on the back line, this TF is trying to kill it, right? That's what I mean. It's like both of them work pretty well depending on the matchup. That's a first. That's a first with the Tristana. I thought that was a pretty well played game. I know there was a couple little mistakes. I tried to point them out. Obviously, Victor's vision, if other people roll the Victor and I have a Gwinsu, it becomes really awkward, and I could have easily lost that. I was very greedy, right? I was trying to go 9. If you're in more of a dodgy spot, like if you think that you're not able to go 9 here, or if it's not Victor's vision, you don't have like a Mel early, like how I did that I was playing around, you can on level 8 cap out with the 6 Sentinel or the 4 Artillerist. So a lot of times it's better to roll on 8 odds just to find like a Corki 2, set up a second damage dealer, and like play around that. But here I had Mel as my extra damage dealer. Mel's good enough. She does almost as much damage as like a normal unit with synergies, so that's great. And then I have my Urgot, who's also doing some tanking and some extra damage, but mostly tanking. And then I have like all my 3 stars that just buff my Tristana incredibly. So this was just a good game. This is just like, you know, exactly what I try and tell people with like diminishing returns and in my guides. Like evaluated a good spot, had the Tristanas early, stacked up the Tristana really high. Then I greeded when I felt like it was good to greed, right? I looked around and I said to myself, okay, I have a Mel, I have some wiggle room here. I'm going to try and go 9, get all the synergies in because I think that spikes me a lot harder. You know, stuff like that. And that's the way you should always think about it, right? At least when you're playing the game. So I rolled really deep on level 6. I stayed level 6 for a while. A lot of times it's difficult to figure out when to go higher levels or not. When I was looking at the lobby, in my head I said to myself, I'm more incentivized to roll at a low level here because if I find a 6 cost, I find a 6 cost. So I just want to use rerolls instead of pushing levels. I didn't want to greed for emissary line because it's very bait a lot of the times. I'd never believe in this emissary line unless I have an incredible spot. I played enough emissary and I lost enough games playing emissary that I am okay with just rerolling the quote-unquote worst version according to everybody, because even though it's the worst version, if you have a good spot for it, it's equally as strong. Like you still win the game, right? But yeah, plus 30, woohoo! Plus 30 for a first, let's go. That's better than plus 11 for a third that I got yesterday. But anyways, thank you for watching. Hopefully it was an informative VOD review. And like I said, if you're a fan of guides are going to come tomorrow, hopefully. I just need to work on some stuff, trying to finish some art because I have a store to open tomorrow, hopefully. Thank you, and bye-bye. See ya.